Welcome to North Florida Lacrosse and this week's installment of Faces of Lacrosse. Here's your host, Ray Carnicelli.
Welcome to Faces of Lacrosse in North Florida, brought to you by North Florida Oral and Facial Surgery. I'm Ray Carnicelli from NorthFloridaLacrosse.com, and we're at Nflax Superstore, and I'm going to introduce you to my good friend, Dr. David Obrien. Dave?
Hey Ray, thanks for having me.
Welcome. I just wanted to get together and talk a little bit about your lacrosse history. You've been involved longer than I have here in the local lacrosse community as a player, as a sponsor, and as a fan. And I wanted to introduce you to our fans at NorthFloridaLacrosse.com as one of the faces of lacrosse in North Florida.
Well, Ray, I appreciate all you do for the lacrosse community, and this the website that you're running is great. I moved to Jacksonville in '88, so about 25 years ago. And I think I met you.
It would have been 91.
3 years later, and we've been friends ever since. And
now, when you first came here, it was with a Navy deployment?
No, actually, it's funny because before I moved here, I had some friends that lived here. Mike Laterra, remember Mike?
Yep.
And he was a member of the Armadillos. And I came down to visit him and his roommate, who was my best friend growing up. And this was 2 years before I even knew I was coming to Jacksonville. And
where were you at the time?
I was in Virginia. I was in Virginia Beach. I was playing for a club team up there that Mike had played for before.
Okay.
I'd known Mike in college when he played for UMass, and UMass was right next to my hometown. And we played summer league with the UMass guys when I was in high school. And my friend Kiefer became his roommate, and they've been buddies ever since. So I came down to visit them, and the first place they took me to was a restaurant, Ward's Landing, if you remember.
Yep.
And as I was at Ward's Landing having a beverage, a motorboat drove up, and Mike said, "Oh, I got to introduce you to this guy." And it was Danny Toole.
One of the longtime Armadillo superstars and current Armadillo, going on probably his 30th year on the team.
So the first person I met in Jacksonville was a lacrosse guy. And then, I'm an oral surgeon, and I had to do my surgical training, and I was looking at places to apply to. And I found out that there was a program in Jacksonville, a trauma center downtown, used to be called University Hospital. Now it's Shands Jacksonville, affiliated with the University of Florida. So I said, well, I know some folks down here, and I'll apply there. So I'm interviewing with the guy, and he says, "What are you doing while you're here?" I said, "Oh, I'm staying with some friends." "Well, where do they live?" "They live at the beach." "I live at the beach." Blah, blah, blah. It turns out that the guy who was interviewing me lived across the street from Mike and Brian. So next day I'm on a plane to another interview, and my wife called me and said, "Hey, the guy from Jacksonville wants you to call him." So I called him up, and he said, "I was talking to your friends across the street, and they made some vague threats about vandalism to my house unless we accepted you to the program because they would like you to play for their lacrosse team."
Very nice.
It's actually, they did say something.
It's a small lacrosse world. So let's just go back a little bit. Growing up, starting to play lacrosse, when did you start playing? What grade or what age?
Well, I grew up in Western Massachusetts, and at that time, there was no youth league in my hometown. We played in a league that had a perennial state champion, Long Meadow High, and they had a youth league. I'd never been exposed to lacrosse. I played baseball for my spring sport, never really enjoyed baseball, and my first introduction to lacrosse is another funny story. I was practicing, and I was on third base, and we're having infield practice.
And you fell asleep?
No, better than that. I looked over my shoulder. It was at the high school field, and behind me, there were these guys playing a sport where they're running up and down the field with sticks, hitting each other and throwing the ball, and I just got mesmerized, and the coach hit me a grounder, and I wasn't paying attention. It went right by me. I didn't even look at the ball, and he chewed me out in front of all my teammates. I went home and told my folks I was quitting baseball. I'd never quit any sport before. And the next day I was at the lacrosse field, and I was the high school team Klingon for 2 years until I became a sophomore when we could start organizing, when we started playing.
So what year did you graduate high school?
1976.
Okay, so when I talk to guys from that era, a lot of times we talk about recruiting back then and compare it to what it was like now. And some people have described it as there's 3 types of lacrosse recruits in the 70s. There were the recruited players, there were the walk-ons, and then there were the sneak-ons, the guys who just kind of show up and end up on the team. Which were you?
I was recruited to a couple places. The first recruiter that came to my high school, I had injured my knee pretty severely in football in October, and in January no, it was November, I still had a cast on my leg, and this guy came to the high school, and he sat down with me. He was from RPI, Rensselaer, and he said, you know, we really want you to come to our college, and we feel like you could start as a freshman. And I'm sitting there with a cast on my leg, and I'm going, oh, yeah, RPI is a good school. And I said, well, what was your record last year? And he said, well, we were like 1-9. And so he was the first recruiter, and the only other place I was recruited was to Brown. And the reason for that is I had gone to a lacrosse camp the summer between my junior and senior year, and the coach from Brown was there. And I also had, I did okay in academics in high school, and we went to visit the campus, and I decided to stop in and visit the lacrosse office, and the coach was in the office. And I don't think I was on their radar at all, but he remembered me from the camp, and he started calling me. That wasn't my first choice. I wanted to go to Williams College, which is another college in Western Mass.
Brown's not a bad second choice.
Yeah, it was all right. So I applied, and I got waiting listed at Williams, and I got accepted at Brown. So it was the best thing that ever happened to me. My experience there was just unbelievable.
Now, I've mentioned to people before, and I've written about, you know, kind of what lacrosse has meant to me along the way, and I know you and I have talked about it before in school, instilling the discipline and the focus and getting help when needed academically. How did lacrosse affect your scholarly pursuits at Brown?
Do you really want to get into that, Ray?
Sometimes it has a negative effect, and sometimes it helps.
Well, you know, I graduated, and
we'll leave it at that.
I did well. I had a lot of fun with my teammates, and I have to say that my college experience was predominantly, I mean, it was a great academic experience there. I got a good education, but had it not been for lacrosse, I don't think I would have enjoyed college as much. My teammates were so special. The team was great. We started off my freshman year 3-10, starting a lot of freshmen, and by the time I graduated, we were nationally challenging for national recognition.
And the relationships made along the way, whether it's as a high school player, a college player, a club player, are some of the best relationships, the longest lasting, and
absolutely
the bonding that occurs on the lacrosse field. I know you've experienced it, as has just about anyone who's stepped on the field. So you finish up at Brown.
Well, can I backtrack a little bit?
Absolutely.
I just want to tell you about my assistant coach, and you know him as he's Dom Starja. He was the 3-time national champion coach, Hall of Famer at Virginia now, and he was my assistant coach at Brown. And he had a really strong influence on me. The guy is one of the best men I've ever met in my life. He was only he graduated in '74, and I got there in '76, so he's only a couple years older than I. But just the way he handled the young men and treated us as people and helped us along and never gave up on us when we had little bumps in the road. And I gave him my share of headaches probably off the field. But he was always encouraging. I just want to give a plug for Dom. I think he is one of the best men I've ever met in my life.
After you left Brown, made your way into the U.S. Navy?
Mm-hmm. No. Then I went to dental school.
Okay.
After that.
Where?
At University of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And played club ball there. I played after college. I played club everywhere I went except when I was at Camp Lejeune with the Marines. There was no club ball there. So for 2 years I was without lacrosse.
Okay. And when you and I first met back in, I guess it would have been the fall of '90, you were one of the Armadillo players who had been around. It was kind of a transition period for the Armadillos. Some of the guys that you first started playing with were starting to retire or move on up to senior lacrosse or masters lacrosse. It was a kind of a neat time though. The team didn't have the Division I pedigree and all the Navy guys that it may have had in the past, because there were some talented players here. But it was a fun group, a tight group, and a team that won the championship. Tell us about those early Armadillo years.
Well, when I arrived here in Jacksonville, just to set the story for people who are newer to Jacksonville and the lacrosse scene, there were no youth teams, there were no high school teams, there was just the Armadillos. It was the only organized lacrosse that we had in the area. And through the friends that I mentioned to you before, I immediately got involved and just met a great group of guys that welcomed me. And like you said, we were very tight back then. We didn't have the elite Navy guys every now and then. Some of the guys that came through that were about ready to retire, Joe Abaduti, Mike Buzzell was there at the time.
We're talking about All-Americans, Hall of Famers. Yeah.
Hall of Famers in Jacksonville. And what the fond memories I have back then was just the cohesiveness of the team. I mean, we did a lot together off the field socially.
When I mentioned in an article I wrote after meeting Tim Supko, who recently passed away, talking about those days of the Armadillos, and Jeremy Foley, who's the athletic director at the University of Florida, was a member of the Armadillos.
Right,
a very tight-knit group, and there's a lot of Gator fans that are Gator fans because of their relationships with Jeremy Foley through the Armadillos, and you kind of came in right at the tail end of that era.
Yeah, I never met Jeremy. The guys that were there that are still there now, there's Scott Cleary, Danny Toole. You're still strapping it on every now and then, right?
Once in a while.
I think Brad Sterling, Coach Sterling, he's the assistant coach at Bowles now. He showed up about the same time as you did. And there was about a decade where I was playing until I couldn't run with the young guys anymore, till my knees kind of put me on the sidelines, had to hang them up.
So you hang them up. I still see you out there from time to time watching the Armadillos and cheering on the guys and showing up just for the camaraderie of it all. But in that time, since you and I have been involved, it's almost incomprehensible the growth, the robust growth, the geographical growth, and the talent growth here in North Florida. Just in the past, the first team started playing in the mid to late 90s, early 90s with Bowles and Neese and Stanton and a few other teams, Episcopal with Chris Bergen, another Navy guy.
Right.
But here lately, it's just, I used to feel like I knew everyone involved in lacrosse for probably my first 15 years here. Now I don't. People say, "Oh, you're in lacrosse, do you know so-and-so?" And I'm happy to say I don't. It just demonstrates the growth. And just give me your opinions on what you've seen.
Well, most guys I talk to know you.
The recognition's 90%. The favorability's not so good.
I have to give you a pat on the back. You and Brad Sterling, who started the first high school team at Bowles. And I didn't know what year it was, but for your efforts of starting the youth league in Ponte Vedra,
Dan
you
McAuliffe,
and Dan McAuliffe, I was going to mention Dan, sure.
Patty Lombardo,
Right.
she pretty much by force of will made that program come along.
I mean, without that, we wouldn't be where we are today. And just like you, I used to know everyone. Now I see kids, I see moms driving their kids, and they got lacrosse bumper stickers. Never saw that before.
Goals everywhere.
Goals everywhere. Kids with the shorts and the shirts, carrying their sticks. It's wonderful.
And you walk into a store like Nflax here, and you look around, and it's just
it's a lacrosse store.
We used to have to hunt down the 2 goals in town here and beg for field space.
Right, and throw them in the back of the truck and tape up the nets.
Have goals will travel, and now there's goals everywhere. And a store like Nflax has amazing supply of equipment and the knowledgeable people.
But the talent, that you mentioned, I mean, we've got guys going Division I schools now.
Yeah, we'll have 7 of them this year.
7?
7
Wow.
Division I players, and more Division II and III and MCLA players than you can count.
Right.
Just so many of them.
Wow. I never would have thought that. When I grew up, it was a Northeast sport. Now they're recruiting kids from Texas and Oregon that are playing at elite levels. And I'm glad that Jacksonville is part of that now.
Well, and you've been a big part of it too, and your sponsorship and support through, personally in North Florida Oral and Facial Surgery. Every time there's a lacrosse event, whether it's a charity fundraiser or an event, you see that North Florida Oral and Facial Surgery logo there, and I know that you're a fan. You've contributed to the growth of lacrosse, and just tell me about the practice and the people in the practice and their knowledge and awareness of lacrosse in the area.
Well, I like to support you, but our sponsorship is marketing, and so I hope I'm not breaking any HIPAA laws by saying that you've been a patient of mine and your family, and it's a nice network. People know me through lacrosse.
You've done implant for me. You've done wisdom teeth extractions for a couple of my boys, and great care, and a number of locations.
Well, we have 5 partners, and we just brought our 5th guy on a couple years ago, and so I'm in Orange Park. I live at the beach. Well, my office is in Orange Park because my last tour of duty was at the Naval Hospital, so I knew that demographic. We have a Ponte Vedra office, we have a Mandarin office, we have a St. John's Bluff office, and then an office in South Point near the what used to be called St. Luke's Hospital.
Okay, and the web address is
www.
You don't have to say that anymore.
Oh, okay. Nfofs.com, North Florida Oral and Facial
And you
Surgery.
can see it on the website at northfloridalacrosse.com.
We have a executive director now that we hired a few years, about 3 or 4 years ago, and we're looking for a headhunter to find us someone. And this guy was a headhunter. I just found him online, and he was from Garden City, Long Island, where my roommate from college now lives. So I thought, I'll give this guy a call. So I called him up, and turns out he went to Cortland State. And we ended up hiring him. He was headhunting for us, but we ended up hiring him. And he never played lacrosse, but his kids play at Julington Creek, and his name's Rick Creasy, and he coaches a couple of the teams out there. And he spends a lot of time, and I just wanted to mention how he's kind of playing or coaching lacrosse.
It's a good example of the growth.
The growth, yeah. And he said if they had lacrosse in my town, I would have played. I just wish they had. So Rick's doing a great job out at Julington Creek with the young folks, and we're very proud to be supporters of the effort to grow lacrosse in Northeast Florida.
Oh, we appreciate it very much. And talking about a busy time for lacrosse, school's just getting back in session. Over at Jacksonville University, the men's and women's teams have started fall ball practice. The high school fall leagues are going to be starting very soon, and we'll have a lot of information coming forward on that, a lot of exciting things happening in fall lacrosse. And then JU kicks off with the Moe's Classic in the spring, and the teams that I'm hearing that are coming, it's going to be the best matchups ever. Well, I appreciate all of your support of lacrosse in Northeast Florida and taking the time to come out to Nflax to talk with me today.
Ray, it's always great to see you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.